And we are live. Welcome to the MLB Strategy Show. It is Thursday, September 23rd. I was hoping I updated that date. I am Josh Engelman. I am joined by Adam Scher. And boy, are you in luck if you're watching this show, because you're getting two breakdowns. We're going to hit the 5-game early and the 5-game main today. It's going to be a good time. So make sure you're hitting the like button as you get in the door. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Adam, how did your Wednesday shake out for you?
It wasn't a lot of fun. Didn't have much Schwarber. So my slate ended pretty quickly. Wasn't even really anything to pay attention to.
Oh, there you go. Good to know. Anything interesting yesterday? I saw nothing yesterday. Once my friends got into town, I was sort of just untethered. Was there anything that we were looking at that ended up happening, or like major chalk that busted?
I mean, none of the Braves did well, but like the best offensive teams were kind of like mediocre. The Dodgers pretty much sucked. The Astros pretty much sucked. The Yankees mostly sucked. Wheeler scored a lot of points. Ryan scored the most points, I believe, for a pitcher.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I mean, chalk pitching came through. Chalk hitting chalk hitting was kind of bad. The teams that we thought should be chalk. But then, like, the Red Sox were also pretty popular. They scored 12 runs. Schwarber was 10% owned. He scored 43 DraftKings points.
I assume he went yard twice.
Yeah, a couple home runs. I think he had a double, too. Kepler scored, like, 40 DraftKings points. He was not popular. Cardinals scored, like, 10 runs. So it was basically like the Red Sox and the Cardinals. The Braves did well, and then the chalk pitching.
All righty. Well, guys, shout out to Jock Market for being the presenting sponsor. Adam and I are about to break this bad boy down. We're going to start with the early, break down the 5-gamer, and then we will break down the main slate. Adam, I'm ready to start if you are.
Yep.
Anderson outscored Ryan by a point per Devin Scott.
Oh, yeah. I forgot Anderson had a really good start too.
Good for him.
Yeah,
Brewers
he outscored
and Cardinals
Kelly by I think 30. I'm just making that number up, but it was a lot.
Was Merrill Kelly bad, or was Anderson just exceptional?
Both.
Okay, that works.
Kelly went 6 innings. I don't know what he finished up with, but he gave up a bunch of runs.
Okay. Hey, he went 6. That was part of my appeal.
He also got a little lucky because Adam Duvall hit a 3-run homer. Austin Riley thought the outfielder caught it and decided to run backwards past Adam Duvall. So it became a 2-run single and an out.
We had that happen in a district playoff game my senior year of high school.
Nice.
Yeah. Ultimately didn't matter, but for a second it looked like it could. And then we had like a blowout inning in the 6th and hung 7 more, and it didn't really matter. But yeah, that happened in one of our district playoff games. That's fucking the worst. Brewers and Cardinals, 4.1 on an implied total for the Brew Crew, 3.9 for the Cards. Adrian Hauser and Adam Wainwright. I didn't get much of the pitching here. Wainwright is 9,600. That's the second most expensive arm on the slate, sandwiched between Max Scherzer and Logan Webb. I got 10% of Wainwright. Hauser's at 7,900. I got about 4%. To me, that it's not a great strikeout matchup for Hauser. And I think that there are just better ways to spend your salary today. So I'm curious where you're landing from a pitching perspective here.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right to me. You know, on the one hand, Wainwright is having a solid season, but he's expensive. You know, 9,600 is a lot to pay for someone that strikes out around 22% of the hitters that he faces. He's a pretty good pitcher in terms of run prevention, 3.8 xFIP, 0.83 home runs per 9. Not a great park to pitch in. Decent offense is going up against, but it's not so much that I'm concerned about how he does from like an actual baseball sense. It's more so I just think it's relatively unlikely he pays off a $9,600 salary with a score that you're really happy that you have. So that would be my biggest concern here, especially, you know, like, yeah, Scherzer is pitching in cores, but you're only getting a $600 discount, or only paying $600 more for Scherzer compared to Wainwright. That ceiling just in terms of strikeout talent is so much higher. So it's pretty tough at that price, I think. That being said, it's a 5-game slate, so still would assume I get some. Hauser on the other side, I'm with you. Tough strikeout matchup against the Cardinals. He's not a very good strikeout pitcher anyway. He's only struck out 17.7% of hitters this year. He's a decent real-life pitcher, but he's someone that when you were getting him at that $6,500, $7,000 price tag, it was a bit easier to stomach and sort of use him as a last guy in, whereas now that he's starting to push 8K, it's a bit more difficult.
This is going to be a tough one for bats, given these implied totals. And honestly, on this slate, we've got the Dodgers pulling away from the pack pretty significantly, the Braves as well. I think the Brewers and Cardinals are just like in this pack of teams in the middle. Ownership for the pitching, if Hauser or Wainwright happen to get a bunch of ownership, I think it makes the hitting a little bit more interesting. Like I have the Cardinals third, I have the Brewers fourth, but they could just as easily be like fifth and sixth. Not a lot to write home here. I like Christian Yelich more than I like any other bat in this game, but where are you going to stand here? Because I think ownership is going to be very important given the Dodgers on this slate and given the Braves.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of think both offenses have enough upside where if they're really low owned, I won't mind getting there just as a contrarian play and hope for the best. But assuming that they're getting reasonable ownership because it's a 5-game slate, there's not really much that stands out here. Like I said, Wainwright's been pretty good this year. Yelich, 4,200 is a pretty fair price tag, but also he just hasn't hit well in over a year now. Escobar's salary came down a bit. We still have the really cheap Willy Adames piece. I would say he's my favorite part of the Brewers, assuming he's back in the lineup. But even looking at Wainwright, there's not a whole lot that stands out as far as like what you would want to target. He's only allowed a 114 expected ISO to righties this year, 149 to lefties, sub 300 expected WOBA to both sides of the plate. He's not one of these pitchers that has, extreme splits or anything like that. So it's mostly for me, if the Brewers aren't getting any ownership, then sure, it's a 5-game slate. They have some power, but individually, it's pretty much Adames that stands out the most. And then on the other side, it's another spot I like for Tyler O'Neill. Had a big game yesterday, but he's got so much power. And the only real flaw, for lack of a better word, in his game is the swing and miss. But going up against somebody like Hauser that doesn't strike out a lot of guys, he does generally do a good job of keeping the ball in the park, but only about a 20% strikeout percentage to righties this year. I don't mind taking my chances on Tyler O'Neill being able to, hit a home run because he's probably going to put it in play.
What side of this game do you like more?
It's
pretty equal, right?
Cardinals. What did you say?
It's pretty equal, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty close. I think I would say the Cardinals just because I have a little bit more respect for Wainwright than Hauser, and I think that the offenses are pretty close.
Okay. Yeah, I have them almost equal for today. It's not ideal. Ownership is going to play a monster role here. I'm just refreshing here to see if we've got any updates. We do not. So who's your favorite bat in this game?
It's either Adames or O'Neill.
Okay. I don't have anything else for Brewers Cardinals, and we're certainly about to talk about this next game.
Yep.
Rockies Dodgers, 4.2 run implied total for the Rocks, 6.3 for the Dodgers. Kyle Freeland and Max Scherzer. I did not get to Freeland in any crunches. It's whatever on a 5-gamer. I certainly got to Scherzer, 33% in fact for today. Obviously a little bit harder in course, but he's still Max Scherzer. It doesn't matter where he's pitching. Do you have any thoughts on Scherzer? To me, very clearly the guy you're paying up for today.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's in cores. Obviously, you would rather it not be in cores. We know the Rockies strike out a lot less frequently at home. They have, going into yesterday's game, they had a 348 WOBA at home compared to, I think, 282 or 283 on the road. It's obviously a worse matchup, but you still have to think in terms of pricing and the slate as a whole. And this is only a 5-game slate. There's very limited pitching options. There's a few other guys that you could certainly look to that give you similar strikeout upside to Scherzer, but only 10 total pitchers to choose from. He's struck out 35.1% of hitters this year. That's 6 full points higher than Yu Darvish, who has the second highest strikeout percentage on the slate, 3.18 xFIP. And he's not really priced up relative to these guys. We already mentioned it compared to Wainwright, but he's only $600 more than Wainwright. He's only $1,000 more than Webb. He's $1,500 more than Darvish, but realistically, I don't think it's gonna be that difficult to find that money over any of those guys. So it would be different if you leave Darvish at 8,700, you leave Webb at 9,200, and you make Scherzer like 11K or 11.2 or something like that. But I think that 10.2 is basically a discounted price tag on him. We paid more money than that for Zach Wheeler yesterday. So yeah, I think that the cores effect is pretty much baked in here. So I still anticipate getting to a lot of Scherzer.
I don't get the sense you anticipate getting to a lot of Kyle Freeland.
No, I do not. He is 5K. He is fully stretched out. That's certainly a case you can make. I had way more Taylor Hearn than I thought I was going to have yesterday. I had more Keegan Aiken than I thought I was going to have, basically just because it got me the bats that I wanted, and they were 5K pitchers that can throw 6 or 7 innings. Freeland certainly can. He's not a bad pitcher, but the matchup's brutal. He's not a very good strikeout pitcher. There's nothing about Freeland that is going to make me say, oh, I actually think it's a good idea to roster him, other than he's 5K. And if I happen to need a 5K pitcher, there's at least some semblance of upside for him once in a while.
It's amazing that playing more Keegan Aiken didn't lead to a better Wednesday for you.
Keegan Aiken scored 18 DraftKings points.
Did he really? Holy shit. Great play there for Keegan Aiken, man. It's a great job finding that diamond in the rough. Is there anything that we even have to say today for the Dodgers bats?
They suck.
They are
them again.
By far the number one stack, and it's not particularly close.
Yeah, but I wish you would stop saying that every time because it never happens.
Well, even what do you want me to do? Like, I got Mookie Betts in 42% of my first sim.
Yeah, they're still in cores. I feel pretty similarly about this one as I did the last two. Senzatella, not a great pitcher, but not a bad pitcher. Marquez, a good pitcher, but still in cores. Freeland, I think, is actually a pretty good real life pitcher, but still facing the Dodgers in cores. They once again, if anyone wanted to offer a bet on X other team on this slate scoring more runs than the Dodgers, at even money, I would take the Dodgers every single time. It's still not Chichi Gonzalez. It's not the spot where you're looking at it and just going like, there is no way they don't score 8+ runs here, but it's still a really good spot. Coors is still a really good park for offense. It's above average for home runs. It's the best outside of the former home parks of Toronto in runs this year. So it's still a really good spot for the Dodgers. It just feels really similar to the last two where they really let me down, but I'm sure I'll be going right back to them.
Yeah, and they're going to be pulling a ton of ownership. They're expensive. You can open them up a little bit with some pay down pitching, but for right now, it doesn't matter what you're looking at. The Dodgers are clearly the most likely top stack for today. Just pay attention to the ownership. I mean, that's going to be a healthy price tag on a 5-man Dodgers stack plus Scherzer. Anxious to see, that's going to be a very popular construction. We'll see where that actually ends up.
Yeah, I will say.
Go ahead.
No, so the one thing that does make this slate different, and because we don't have ownership yet, so I don't know exactly what the numbers look like, but with it only being a 5-game slate, there is a much better chance here that I end up not going to the Dodgers than there was on the last two slates where there were 10 and 11 games, because basically on those slates, I was able to get the Dodgers for the most of the Dodgers at similar ownership to teams like the Braves and the Astros, the other teams that people really liked. Whereas today, I think there's a better chance the Dodgers end up coming in at ownership where it's just like, okay, hopefully they don't, score a million runs. I'll go to some other teams. So with it being a 5-game slate, the ownership is more likely to play a factor.
I mean, they're going to be in 30% of lineups. I think that's a pretty safe bet for
the only thing that I would question on that is where people, I guess they'll just roll Kikuchi or something.
It's there.
Plus Charlie Morton's so free. Yeah.
Do we go to Rockies? Can you target Rockies bats against Max Scherzer? I have no concept of how much ownership is going to be there today.
Yeah, I mean, that's the entire, if
they're unowned, they're going to look great.
Right, exactly. It's a 10-game slate. So the opportunity cost to going up against a really good pitcher is lower than it would be on a 10 or 11-game slate. You're still in Coors Field. He's probably, Scherzer's probably going to have a good game, but with the lack of opportunity cost, if there's not ownership on the Rockies, and assuming Scherzer's pulling a ton of it, you can see how you don't have to have the Rockies work out all that often for it to pay off really well when it does. And so I'd be interested. But if you're going to have, 5 to 10% of the field saying, oh, well, what if I just stack against Scherzer? Then I would rather just be going somewhere else.
Absolutely. Do you have a favorite Rockies bet?
Either Hampson because of the salary or Crone just because he's only 3,600 as well.
That'll work. Anything else for Rockies Dodgers?
Nope. Pay a lot of attention to ownership.
Yes. This one I'm really curious in. Oakland A's, Seattle Mariners, 4.7 run implied total for Oakland, 3.8 for the Mariners. Chris Bassett and Yusei Kikuchi. Chris Bassett is 6,100. Yusei Kikuchi is 5,500. I am curious right now, which pitcher do you prefer?
So I'm trying to pull it up now. Do you have what Bassett's done? Did he make a rehab start or did he?
I see nothing.
Okay. So he hasn't pitched since getting hit in the face by the line drive.
Yeah.
So it seems likely he's not going to go deep into this game. He hasn't pitched in a month. He threw 23 pitches in that game, got his face shattered. So
does that do you think that they would slow him down here? I mean, he wasn't injured in that, like, it's not a pitching injury.
It's not an arm injury.
Right.
But he still hasn't thrown in a month.
He hasn't thrown a competitive inning in a month. Like,
right. But
I have trouble looking at this one because he doesn't have like a baseball injury. His face was fucked.
Right. Yeah. I agree with that. Like, he certainly could have thrown like a 70, worked up to like a 75 pitch bullpen or something. I haven't seen that reported. If it is, then I would feel a little bit differently. Without knowing that, I kind of am looking at this like you're going to get 60 to 70 pitches from Bassett, probably like 4, maybe 5 innings, which makes him reasonable. But it also, like, that estimate could be high also. It's kind of a best guess for me, but I think Bassett's okay. I think in terms of upside, I'd rather, it's tough because the A's are such a good offense. But I think I would lean toward Kikuchi just because we do know he's fully stretched out. He's only 5,500. He does have a 24.5% strikeout percentage this year. So I anticipate if you're playing a lot of lineups using both pitchers, but yeah, I think I would get to Kikuchi first.
So I gave Bassett his full 6 innings. That's what he's averaged for the season. I'm probably a little high on that just because of this being his first start back. He was my most exposed pitcher coming out of my sims. Now, if I roll him back to 5 2/3 or 5 1/3 here, I think that Kikuchi catches him. But I think these two guys are, like, I don't want to say premier pay down options, but I like paying down with both of them.
Wait, you had Bassett how many innings?
6.
That seems really aggressive.
So it's what he's averaged for the season. So like that was just my first jumping off point. I think that that's probably high given the factors of him coming back. I think rolling him back down to 5 2/3 or 5 1/3 probably for this spot is more likely. 4? You think I should roll him down 2 full innings?
I would not go above 5.
Interesting. And look, we have less time until lock, but we might get additional words of, if he is limited, what his limits would be. I'm leaning a little bit more that he's going to have a bit more free reign. I think 5 or 5 1/3 would work. But even if I went to 5, I think he's still showing up in 25% of my lineups or so. Kikuchi probably in like 30-something%. I think this is a great spot to pay down. The park's great. I mean, Bassett and Kikuchi are both good. I like this spot for pitching. I'm really surprised to see both of their salaries.
Yeah, so was I. And for what it's worth, Alex has Bassett projected for a little over 10 DraftKings points. He has Kikuchi at 12.5.
Okay, so I have Kikuchi at 14. I've got Bassett way higher. But again, that's at his baseline 6 innings. If I cut that to 5, let's just I can do that now and look at it. What do I drop him to? If I cut Bassett just to go 5 innings, changes his projection to 15 fantasy points. I don't think that's crazy.
Someone just mentioned Bassett threw a 30-pitch bullpen on Monday. If that's the case, like, I don't think you can really go higher than 4.
Then I agree with you there. It's so true. We so rarely see guys that are coming back in this spot where their injury has very little to do with pitching. Like, it's either some sort of lower body thing or, the guy had tightness in his arm. It's very rarely guy took one to the face a month ago.
Yeah. None of the articles that I've been able to find have mentioned anything.
Yeah. What does Oakland have to play for?
They are. ESPN has them with a 0.6% chance of making the playoffs.
Okay. Yeah, that's what it is.
The Astros have the division locked up. They're not really in wildcard contention.
And neither are the Mariners. They're at 2.5% chance to win the wild card. They're a game back. So it's probably not. I'm starting to lean more towards like a 5-inning ceiling, 4-inning likelihood.
You're coming around.
Look, man, it's not like I was steadfast here, but him throwing a 30-pitch bullpen session is like, that's real information. That was more actionable than anything we had other than shrug emoji. I still like going to Bassett a little bit. Like, he should.
It's still fine at 6,100. Like, if he goes 4 innings on a 5-game slate where the other pay down options are Kikuchi against the A's. Like, yeah, I like Kikuchi, so do you, but can pretty easily see how that goes wrong. Yeah. Freeland against the Dodgers in Coors. And if you want to include Bumgarner, he's facing the Braves. Like, you could pretty realistically get a scenario where like the best scoring pitcher out of that group is like 11 or 12 points. And Bassett certainly can do that, even if he's only throwing, let's say, 4 innings.
Yeah, the price tag just really works. So
yeah, it's another one though where the ownership matters a lot too, because if you don't think that you have a real top end outcome for Bassett and he's getting ownership, there's not a whole lot of risk in going away from him. The only risk would be that all of the other cheap pitchers bomb and those 12 points end up being necessary. But if he's not getting ownership, then it's more appealing to go there, even with the muted ceiling. So spots like that, I do think ownership are really, really important.
So let's say it like this. What's your expectation on Bassett's ownership? I know that's a tough thing to do right now, but I mean, if he's 15% owned, how do you feel about Chris Bassett today?
Like that,
like I would want more.
No, I think that's probably about right to me.
See, like to me, I look at that and think, and it depends what game, like what contest you're getting into. But if he's low owned, then I like the idea of thinking maybe he can just go longer on a day like today in a GPP. Because it's not like the talent's not there. He's not
right.
Like he's actually good if his face isn't fucked.
Agreed completely. Like he would be the highest. He was like 10K before his injury, wasn't he?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. The thing for me is like if we assume that he can't,
he was 11-3 one day against the Yankees.
If we assume that he like just isn't going to go deep into this game, then realistically Kyle Freeland has a higher ceiling. Like that's kind of the thing, but
and the leverage against the Dodgers bats.
Yeah. And obviously a very low probability of hitting his ceiling. But I just really start to become concerned about the muted upside if we're going to have like some sort of hard cap on Bassett. But, again, 6,100, like it's still a good play. It's just the ownership matters because I don't really know that a true raw point ceiling is there.
So I cut him down to 4 2/3, and he's still showing up in 30% of my lineups.
Yeah, like I think it's pretty likely he's just a useful piece, I guess.
And now I'm getting Yusei Kikuchi as my most exposed pitcher.
Yeah, I think.
And again, so much of what's driving that is the fact that the Dodgers are such a good play at heavy salaries that you're naturally going to have to find some pay down options somewhere. These pitching matchups going up against each other are going to be preferable. So keep your eyes peeled on the ownership. But to me, this is sort of like the best pitching matchup on the slate.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, like
I don't like the offenses all that much. I like Oakland's more than I like Seattle's.
Yeah, without a doubt.
All right. So talk to me about Oakland bats then. Like if you see, I only have Oakland 7th overall, but if you say Kikuchi's pulling 30-something% ownership, I think that makes Oakland even more appealing.
Yeah, so do I. The park is not favorable, but again, the opportunity cost on a slate like this is smaller than on previous slates where it was really difficult to get to Oakland because you had so many good offenses to get to. Kikuchi for the season, he has good strikeout numbers, but also has a lot of 199 expected ISO to righties, 352 expected WOBA. You have a lot of right-handed power in this lineup. 181 expected ISO to lefties as well. So Matt Olson, who has just absolutely destroyed left-handed and right-handed pitching this year, certainly still a relatively strong option as well. Oakland's pricing has come down a little bit too. You still have Marte at 5,900, Olson at 5,100, but nobody else in the projected lineup is above 40. Well, Kana's 4,800. Nobody else is above 4,300. You have cheap guys at the bottom with Pinder, Davis, and Andrews. So I do like using Oakland just because they have so much upside and because I expect Kikuchi to get a lot of ownership.
That works for me. I have the Mariners dead last today. It's not a spot that I'm trying to get to all that frequently. I don't have anything else here.
Neither do I.
This one's going to be a very, very, very important game for today. Final results of my sim: 35% to Bassett at 4 2/3, 38% to Kikuchi. I think we're going to be somewhere in that range today. Like if Bassett's 30, if I'm right in, let's just say my data is right. If Bassett's 35% owned, you're running away from that, right?
It's really hard to say without having ownership for the other pitchers or the opposing offenses either. I mean, if somehow the Dodgers weren't popular, then no, I would just play a bunch of Bassett. And if Kikuchi's 80% and Bassett's 30, then I'm still fine going to Bassett. It's just really hard to answer that question without like complete information.
Oh God, Oakland hits better during the day at home, apparently. So
I mean, it makes sense because it's not 60 degrees.
Yeah. It's not Oakland that does that. Both teams will. like temperature. Both teams get the same temperature for the game. It's not.
Yeah, I mean, Oakland probably has like a 4.3 implied run total if this game's played at 7 p.m. their time.
Yep. All right. Schedule for today. We have 2, 4, 6, 8 more live shows. NFL Strategy Show Matchups Edition with Laffy and Matt Savoca is coming up in 33 minutes. Awesemo Betting Show at 1 p.m. on the Awesemo Odds channel with Eitan and Ben. Then you get the Jock Market NFL Show at 2, the Yahoo NFL Show at 3, MMA Strategy at 4 p.m. with Jason and Pete the Heat Rogers, because we've got a big UFC pay-per-view coming up on Saturday. 5:30 MLB Live Before Lock with Greg and Adam, so Adam will be back. 6:30 NFL Deeper Dive, Laffy, Alex, Brown, and Ben. And then NFL Live Before Lock with Greg and Eric at 7:30. Plus, you get our MLB Top Stack tool for free today and our NFL Showdown ownership for Panthers and Texans. Now,
so Bassett threw a simulated game Saturday. There's not details in this, but Bassett threw a simulated game Saturday and is expected to throw a bullpen session Monday. Bob Melvin said the right-hander looked good against live hitters, but it doesn't give anything on, did he face 3 of them? Did he face, 12 of them?
Yeah. Bassett season, baby. But even more importantly, Diamondbacks season. 3.8 run implied total for the Diamondbacks, 5 for the Braves, Madison, Bumgarner, and Charlie Morton. Not really going to be getting to all that much Mad Bum at 6% ownership at 6,800, but I am going to get to a bit more Charlie Morton. 7,500 today. Got him in 37% of the sims. Morton looking very nice.
Yeah, kind of a broken price point on Morton here. You're going up against the Diamondbacks team that has been one of the worst offenses in baseball overall. They've really struggled against right-handed pitching. You're getting him in Arizona, where I believe the roof is going to be closed because it's like noon, 12:40 Arizona time. It's probably like 110 degrees or something. So I assume the roof's going to be closed. I don't get this price tag at all. Morton has a 28% strikeout percentage this year, 3.39 xFIP. Really good pitcher, good park, assuming the roof is closed. Really good matchup. I don't really understand why Morton's only 7,500. I kind of assume he's going to be my highest owned pitcher.
Let's find out what the temperature is going to be real feel style at Chase Field today. It is, where the hell is that? Feels like 96, 97, up to close to 100 later in the game. Yeah, close that roof. Not going to be a fun way to play a baseball game. Any interest in Madison Bumgarner? I mean, I assume, some shares are viable, particularly if the Braves are the number 2 team in ownership, which I expect them to be.
Yeah, it's not, I don't really like Bumgarner, but where did you get 6% ownership from?
Me.
Oh, I'm sitting here like trying to refresh everything you have, like log out, log back in. Yeah, if he's going to be low owned, then it's fine. He's not a great pitcher, but he's not terrible. He has a 20% strikeout percentage, 4.88 xFIP this year. Really, really bad matchup against the Braves. But again, it comes down to like, if Bassett's going to be, let's say 30, 35%, and Kikuchi's going to be 50%, and Bumgarner's going to be 10, if you want to go to more popular bats, Bumgarner is going to make sense as a lower owned, option. Not that it's a good matchup for him though.
I got the Braves as my number 2 stack. I expect them to be the number 2 stack in our top stack tool. Ownership will tell the biggest story here. The roof being closed is definitely a negative for Atlanta. It's a little bit different than it's been over these past 2 days. Any interesting thoughts for the Braves?
Not really. Bumgarner is allowed a 189 expected ISO to righties. He's only struck out 18.3%, going up against a lot of right-handed bats that have a lot of power. The only lefty in the projected lineup is Freddie Freeman, who is just really good. Anyway, really curious to see where ownership comes in on Atlanta, since we do have the Dodgers, who we assume are going to pull a lot of it. I could definitely see it being a case where like people use the Jorge Soler at 3,600, d'Arnaud, Swanson, Guillermo Heredia, if he's in the lineup, value type plays from Atlanta, and mix them in with the Dodgers. And it creates a situation where maybe paying up for Freeman and Albies allows you to be a little bit contrarian within Atlanta stacks. If that's the case, do so. I think it's a good spot. But if they end up being similarly owned to the Dodgers overall, then I would still lean towards the Dodgers.
All right. Anything else for Diamondbacks and Braves? I don't get the sense that you're targeting Diamondbacks bats today.
I am not targeting Diamondbacks bats today, with the caveat that if Morton is 75% owned or something, it's a 10-game slate. The Diamondbacks are cheap. I mean, you can go like Webb plus Scherzer with the Diamondbacks, but outside of crazy Morton ownership, I don't really see it.
Padres and Giants, 3.7 run implied total for the Pods, 3.8 for the Giants. Yu Darvish and Logan Webb. $8,700 Darvish showed up in 29% of my sims. Only 6% for Logan Webb at 9,200. I assume the field is going to prefer Darvish just because he's slightly cheaper and probably a little bit better. Definitely from a fantasy perspective, from a strikeout perspective. How are you feeling about the pitching in this game?
They're both good options, I think. I prefer Webb.
Okay. Talk to me.
I like the matchup more. I don't think the Padres offense is as good as the Giants offense. I think that Webb is a better pitcher than Darvish overall. Darvish does have the higher strikeout percentage at 29.1%, but Webb this season is still a 26.5% strikeout percentage. 2.77 xFIP is actually the best on the slate. It's better than Scherzer. Only a 6.1% walk percentage, 0.62 home runs per 9. He's a really, really good pitcher. We've seen, the Padres really just fade down the stretch. The Giants continue to be a very, very good offense at their prices. With Darvish priced down to 8,700, I think that the Giants, the tough matchup is baked in, and he still has plenty of upside. But between these two, I think I actually get the Webb first.
That's fair. I don't think that's too crazy. I'm happy to get to either one of them. I think they're both good. It's not that I like the spot for either guy because I don't think that either one of these matchups are particularly tasty, but I'm happy to I'd rather get to the pitching than the hitting in this game. Do you like the bats on either side?
Ownership dependent.
Sure.
If Darvish is pulling a lot of ownership, then I like the Giants just because they are a good offense. They're getting a positive park shift here. But in terms of just looking at the matchup and prioritizing them, I wouldn't be, because they're not really that inexpensive either. They are less expensive than they were yesterday, but you've still got three guys in the projected lineup, 5K or higher, in Belt, Bryant, and Crawford. Posey's just shy at 4,900. He may or may not even be in the lineup with this being a day game. If it's Casali, obviously that makes the lineup weaker. So it would be more of a negative correlation stack against Darvish if he's getting a lot of ownership than a stack that I would organically get to.
Nick Valentine with the super chat that said thoughts on Logan Webb over 5.5 Ks at plus 132. I can say that it has a positive expected ROI on our MLB prop tool. You can find that at awesemo.com if you want, but seems like a good bet to me.
Yeah, plus 132 seems like a good price.
I don't have anything else for this game or for this slate. Do you have anything else for the game?
Nope.
Sum it up. Favorite stacks?
Dodgers, Braves.
There it is.
I mean,
great work there. Not that you're wrong. That's the way that you have to say it. Pay attention to ownership. That will be a very big feature for today. Still have to touch on promo code for today. MLB Strategy Show. One big word. Get an Awesemo Plus weekly pass for $29.95. That's access to all of the premium content that we have across all of the sports. You get projections, ownership, premium Slack, lineup builder, top stacks tool, and more. So for 25% off that first week, you get our Awesemo Plus Platinum Pass for just $29.95. Now we move it on to the main slate, another 5-gamer. Good day for baseball contest, except for the fact that some of the prize pools aren't ideal.
Yeah, other than that.
I mean, like a double 5-gamer is awesome. And then
I like it.
And take a dump on it.
Yeah, like it should be a fun fantasy day because you have that and then you have, the football game.
All right, let's talk a little bit about this main slate. We're going to kick it off. The Reds and Nats. 4.9 run implied total for the Reds, 3.6 for the Nats. Luis Castillo and Pat Corbin. I got to Castillo in 27% of my sim. I got Pat Corbin in 20%. So talk to me at least a little bit about the pitching matchup. I know you are a Castillo guy.
Yeah, I am. The Nats offense really hasn't been bad since the trade deadline. They've been around league average. The biggest issue is that they really haven't struck out a lot, but 8,900 for Castillo, not a bad price point here. Again, a 5-game slate. So opportunity cost at pitcher just isn't going to be as high. You do have an absurdly priced Aaron Nola facing the Pirates. If that game ends up being good to go, there are some weather concerns there. But other than that, there's not a whole lot of good pitching on this slate. So Castillo is going to look pretty good. Only a 3.6 implied run total for the Nats. Overall this season, a 24% strikeout percentage. You've also seen that come up as the season's gone along. Earlier on in the season, for whatever reason, he just wasn't striking out a lot of guys, but you have seen that increase. 3.61 xFIP overall this season, coming off of a very good start against the Dodgers, where he threw 111 pitches over 6 1/3, struck out 10. So yeah, I mean, even though the Nats don't strike out a ton, I think on this slate, Castillo looks like one of the better pitching options.
Do you get to my boy Corbin?
No, I don't think that I will.
Okay. I don't think he looks horrible at 7,400. The Reds offense is like legitimately not very good. So we'll see how that actually shakes out. I have this game a lot closer than the current line shows. So I'm a little bit more for Corbin. It's not the same as it normally is. This just happens to be a 5-gamer. I don't really like the bats here. I like some individual bats like Jose Barrero's flat minimum with dual eligibility, but this doesn't seem like a spot that I want to stack both sides. I think the Reds are going to show up a lot higher in our top stack tool than I feel they should.
I think that's pretty likely given how low owned, or how inexpensive rather, the Reds are. If they do get tons of ownership, I guess that does sort of put Corbin on the board for me. If I need to pay down a little bit, but outside of that, I'm not really interested in Corbin. As far as the Reds go, I do like Farmer at 3,800. I really like Castellanos at 5,500. Suarez would be okay. Barrero, like you said, 2K flat is fine. But Castellanos, the clear priority for me from the Reds.
You said that the Reds are cheap. All the guys that are actually good in their lineup aren't cheap. It's garbage that's cheap.
Yeah, but if you have Farmer hitting second at 3,800, and then you have Suarez at 4,400, and you have Barrero at 2K, if the Shields is in there at 2K, like if you put multiple 2K guys on a $5,100 team, it's going to make the stack as a whole inexpensive because you're going to be able to add in Castellanos and Votto.
Yeah, that's fair. This just strikes me as a spot where there's a line drawn in the sand of like there's 4.5 guys that are really good and 4.5 that aren't. And I don't know if that makes the stack better if I start cutting out like leadoff hitters or Joey Votto.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you're not going to, you can pretty easily, I think, play like Farmer, Castellanos, Votto, Barrera, the Shields, and do whatever you want with the rest of your lineup.
I'm expecting the Reds to be over-owned in our top stack.
So am I.
Okay. And I'm expecting the Nats to not really be owned.
Yeah, I wouldn't think that they would.
Okay. Anything else for Reds and Nats?
If Castillo's ownership is crazy, it is a nice park to hit in for the Nats, but only supposed to be like 60 degrees here too. So probably a little bit less conducive for home runs than it normally is.
Well, don't worry. I don't think that his ownership is going to be any crazier than the ownership here. Phillies and Pirates, 5.4 run implied total for the Phillies, 3.4 for the Pirates. Aaron Nola and Connor Overton. Overton is only going to go like an inning or two, so he's not really in play. I got Aaron Nola at 8,500 today in 67% of sims. What are we doing here?
Just jam Aaron Nola. I don't really see a way around it. It's only a 5-game slate, so yeah, there are alternatives, but it's not like one of these slates where there's 6 guys coming in at a lot lower ownership that have the same upside as him. It's about as good a matchup as you can get. He's been better at home for years. It's just a complete misprice here. There are weather concerns, so pay attention to that. Maybe we'll have a little bit more information when we get to the deeper dive later. But outside of that, I just don't understand this price at all. The Phillies are hanging on for dear life in the playoff race. Like they're not one of these teams that we think is going to just pull Nola after 5 innings to save him for the postseason or something. They need to win every game that they can. It's a great matchup. The price tag makes no sense. I don't really care what his ownership is, within reason. Like I'm assuming he's not going to be 100% owned, so I don't really care.
Yeah, if he's 67% owned, he should be, and that's not changing anything. Like all of it's dumb. His price is dumb. Everything that can go on for Nola today is in his favor. So
like yesterday, Wheeler was like projected for around 50%, and then Sale and Kluber around 20%. I played 85% Wheeler and basically no Sale or Kluber, and was perfectly fine with that decision. It would be the same thing for me here, I think, like where I just say, okay, whatever, I'll just take Nola pretty much everywhere and figure out the rest after that.
I will not be taking Pirates bats on the opposite side of Nola, but is it interesting to you if this ownership number gets like pretty high?
Yeah, because obviously if you can somehow knock off, 75% of the field, that's appealing. But like I was saying, I think there's the most likely case is that I just play Nola everywhere.
Yep. We're on the same page. I don't have any interest in Pirates bats. I do like the Phillies, though. They are my number one stack right now. I'm sure no one's surprised by that information, but how do you feel about the Phillies against what is essentially a bullpen game for the Pirates?
Yeah, it should be a bullpen game and not a very good bullpen at that. So good park to hit in. Again, looks like cool weather here, so not as favorable as, it would have been a month ago. But it's a 5.5 implied run total. It's a good matchup against the Pirates. They're relatively expensive. Real Muto's salary keeps climbing. Segura is at 4,800. We have Harper at 6K. But the bottom of the order, it drops off. Miller 3,800 has plenty of power. McCutcheon same price. Didi at 3,500. So it's kind of like the Reds, I guess, where like the hitters you really want are expensive, but there's enough value where, especially when you consider how cheap Nola is, how cheap Castillo is, there's enough value in this stack where if you go with a 5-man stack, it's gonna be pretty easy to still do whatever you want with the rest of your lineup.
Anything else? Phillies and Pirates?
Nope.
Orioles and Rangers. 4.7 run implied total for the O's, 4.5 for the Rangers. Zach Lothar and Glenn Otto. I got both of these guys around 10%. Lothar at 5,300, Otto at 6,700. Do you have a preference for pitching here?
Otto.
Yeah.
I think.
By a lot?
Yeah. I just think he's got better strikeout stuff. He went 69 pitches last time out, 78, 84 in his previous two. So if he's pitching well, I think that he can go deep. He threw didn't throw 7 innings. Gave up 7 earned runs in 3 1/3 against Houston last start. Gave up 8 earned runs in 3 1/3 against Oakland the start before that. Baltimore, though, not even remotely close to being the same level offense. 91 WRC plus against right-handed pitching this year, about a 25% strikeout percentage. There's a good chance that Otto's not particularly good as a major league pitcher, but he did show decent strikeout numbers in the minors at AAA. Limited time at AAA, 2 starts for the Yankees, 24.5% strikeout percentage, 4 starts for the Rangers, 24.4% strikeout percentage. He made 10 starts at AA for the Yankees this year, 65 1/3 total innings, had a 40.7% strikeout percentage, 24.7% so far in the majors. It's not that I think Otto is any good, but I think that at 6,700 on a slate with limited pitching, I don't mind getting him against the Orioles.
This is a weird game. Probably a game where you have parts of all of it. Yep. A little bit of both pitchers, a little bit of both sides of hitting. Do you have a preference between either team from a stack perspective? I have them as basically equals, separated in top stack by 0.8%.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's kind of like the same thing for me where like I think the Orioles have the better offense, but it's still basically, you look at the Orioles, you're like, okay, Mullins, Mountcastle, Santander, if he's in the lineup, Mancini, Hayes, like you're happy with those guys, and then the rest are just bad for the most part. For Texas, it's kind of like, Kiner Falefa, Garcia, Lowe, Solak. I'm okay with those guys, and then you just kind of drop off. So I'm not really confident in either stack, but I'm not confident in either pitcher either. So yeah, it's just kind of ownership will matter a lot. I don't think one team should be particularly more popular than the other.
Yeah, I have them as basically equals. Baltimore is basically free. Mountcastle and Mullins are both over 4K. Everybody else is 3K or below, and nowhere above 3,200 for the rest of those guys. So no problems rostering these Orioles bats. I would get to both sides. I don't really have much of a preference. You can mix and match, but having a lot of this game feels like a likely scenario. I don't have anything else for Baltimore or Texas.
Nope, me neither.
So let's talk a little bit about the presenting sponsor of this show. That would be Jock Market. And if you haven't heard, they've turned fantasy sports into a stock exchange. You can buy and sell shares of players in real time for NBA, MLB, NHL, and PGA contests. You pick up these shares in a pregame IPO phase, and then you can buy, sell, or hold depending on how things are going. If you have a guy that you take and he does well early, you can sell him off and just lock in the profits. Download the app in the App Store. Use the promo code Awesemo when signing up and get a $50 bonus on your first deposit, or up to a $50 bonus on your first deposit. This offer is exclusive to the Awesemo community, so take advantage right now. Again, that's Awesemo for a $50 deposit bonus. 2 more games to go here. Twins and Jays, 4.4 run implied total for the Twins, 5.1 for the Jays. Michael Pineda and Steven Matz. Pineda 5,800, Matz 9,200. How are you handling the pitching? Because Matz feels a little too expensive given Nola and Castillo.
Yeah, Matz is a really tough sell given their pricing. Like with it being a 5-game slate, I understand why you would see Matz's salary elevate, but you would also need Castillo to be like 10K and Nola to be like 11K for this to all make sense. Pricing him higher than those guys, it's really just a spot where you could make a case to pay up to be contrarian, because I would be very surprised if you get much ownership going to Matz, but not really something that I'm going to be looking to do all that much. I don't think. I think there's just going to be such a gap in projection between them right now. Alex has Nola projected for 21 DraftKings points. He has Matz at 14, Castillo at 17. So, I mean, there comes a point where it's like, yeah, Matz still certainly is going to beat them more than 0% of the time, but I'm typically not going to give up 7 projected points to pay. I'm not going to pay more money to give up 7 projected points all that often. So pretty tough sell. And then on top of that, it's not like it's an easy matchup either. Plenty of power in this lineup. So yeah, really weird price on Matz.
I've had it 6.8, the gap between Nola and Matz. So we're in the same, sort of relative park there. And then for Pineda, I just don't want to tackle him against the Blue Jays.
No, that sounds like a really miserable time. Lots of power in Toronto's lineup. Pineda just not very good anymore. Fastball velocity has dropped several miles per hour from where he used to be at. He's allowed a 200 expected ISO to righties this year, only striking out 21.5%. He's only struck out 17.5% of lefties with a 182 expected ISO. I don't see it. Kind of surprised Toronto only has a 5.2 implied run total, I guess because it's September in Minnesota.
Yeah. And I like both sides of this game from a bats perspective. I don't think they're separated all that much. The right-handed power for Minnesota, Buxton, Donaldson, Sano, Rooker. I mean, that looks pretty good going up against Matz here. So while I do prefer the Blue Jays, they're in a better spot and they're a better offense. I like the offenses on both sides. This is my number 2 and number 4 stack, but really, I like them both.
Yeah, I do too, assuming that Minnesota is not getting nearly as much ownership. Matz has done a pretty good job of limiting production this year. Only a 20% strikeout percentage against righties, but he's held them to a 317 expected WOBA, 157 expected ISO. But, assuming Buxton's in the lineup, you get Buxton, Polanco, Donaldson, Sano, all with right-handed power. Rooker's got some power at only 2,500. So I would still like those guys here. Clearly prefer the Blue Jays side, but ownership could swing things.
It's a wild one, man. The real wild one. Like I like the whole Blue Jays lineup. Mixing and matching individual bats for Minnesota looks really tasty. It's just this is the spot.
Yeah, the only thing I really don't like in this game is that Minnesota is another one of these parks that just plays differently. The first month and the last month of the season.
Absolutely. I'm really curious to see the ownership in this game. Like on the pitching side, do they get anywhere? Does that drive up hitting in this matchup? How much can how much do people get to the Twins? I could see them being a little overowned, just like $3,800 Kepler, $3,800 Sano. They're not hard to get to. Fascinating game. Going to be popular, I think. Angels and Astros, we can close it out here. 3.8 run implied total for the Angels, 4.7 for the Stros, Alex Cobb and Lance McCullers. Curious if you're on the same page as me. Lance McCullers looking like an excellent pay up at 10,100.
Yeah, I think he's pretty clearly the second or third pitching play on this slate. Alex has him projected about a point behind Nola and about 2 points ahead of Castillo. I think that's very reasonable. Despite what Luis Garcia would have you think yesterday, the Angels are a pretty easy team to strike out. You have Marsh that strikes out a lot. Ohtani's really good, but he'll strike out. Walsh strikes out. Plenty of strikeouts in this lineup. McCullers is a good pitcher, has good strikeout stuff, 27.5% strikeout percentage, 3.66 xFIP this year. The only real negative on McCullers is he does walk too many guys, and that combined with his ability to get strikeouts does drive his pitch count up. So sometimes he doesn't go as deep in the games as you would really like. But outside of that, no real concerns there. He shouldn't be more expensive than Nola. He definitely shouldn't be $1,600 more expensive than Nola. He but between him and Castillo, I think it's close. Like Castillo should be the less expensive of the two, but they have pretty similar ceilings. So I assume for me, I'm just going to get a lot of those three. And I think that's probably going to be the case for a lot of other people too. So you're going to, if you're doing that, you're going to want to pay attention to, to ownership amongst your hitters, obviously. But I think those three really just stand out as the clear top options.
I got them in 144% of my sims. Like they're in everything. I got McCullers at 50%. I have him slightly behind Nola. I have him a little bit further ahead of Castillo. I think I'm just a little lighter on Castillo, but Castillo is still the third guy for me on the slate. I don't have anything to like say negatively. It's a little bit more extreme for me. Do you get to Cobb at all at 8,100?
It's a pretty tough one here because on the one hand, he would be like the perfect, like he doesn't project as well as the guys priced around him, but he's in that price range and he's put up good numbers this year. You know, he has struck out 25.8% of hitters, 3.16 xFIP. He's been legitimately good. The issue is just that the pitchers priced around him, Nola in particular, is just so mispriced. It's not like this guy projects 2 points better, but everybody's going to play him type thing. Alex has him projected 10 points better. So again, that's just really, really difficult to get to. But then on top of that, also from a ceiling standpoint, I don't think that even if you're just talking, like ignore the matchup, what does a really good game from Cobb look like? I don't think he can go deep enough into the game to really rival Nola because he only threw 66 pitches last time out. They had said they were going to limit him to around 70. I'm assuming you're going to get something, in the 75, 80 range from Cobb here. So it's just that combined with a really, really tough matchup. It's close to impossible, I think, for me to get to Cobb.
I think it's going to be close to impossible that I get to very much from the Angels bats to Ohtani be damned. Any priorities here for the Angels bats for you?
Priorities, definitely not.
That'll work. I figured the Astros would rank a little bit higher, but I think I'm giving Cobb some decent respect. So I have the Astros as my number 6 stack. They're never a team that I'm mad about having, but I don't think that they look as good as some of the other options. Like I think that I like the Orioles Rangers game more than I like the Astros.
I was going to say, I definitely like the Phillies more. I definitely like the Blue Jays more. I could certainly argue that the Reds, the Twins, the Orioles, and the Rangers all come in ahead as well. I think, we don't have the top stack tool yet, but I would expect that you see Philadelphia and Toronto, basically leading it. And then you just get one of those where it's just like 3 through 8 or whatever it is, are just, 6%, 5.5, 5.4, kind of down the line. So I think they're all pretty interchangeable. Clearly, the Astros give you massive upside. They just have so many good hitters in this lineup. But Cobb has been really good. He's held righties this year to a 0.06 expected ISO with a 28.3% strikeout percentage. Lefties have a 0.05 expected ISO. His splitter, which was the pitch that back in the day when he was with Tampa and a really good pitcher, really good up-and-coming young pitcher, he had a just unhittable splitter, dealt with a bunch of arm injuries between then and now. Back when he was with the Orioles, you would see him sort of get it for a game or two and then it would disappear. He has consistently had it this year and it has consistently been really, really, really good. So it's a tough matchup. But that being said, there is tons and tons of talent in the Houston lineup. So a lot will depend on ownership there.
My top stack odds for a couple of those teams: Orioles 12, Rangers 13, Twins 13, Blue Jays 14, Astros 11. Like we're all jammed together in that area. So I'm with you on that evaluation. Let's sum it all up here. We just kind of did, but ownership is going to make a huge difference. I can tell you this much. Bottom stacks are Angels and Pirates. Favorite stacks for today, or what's your expectation as of right now?
I mean, Blue Jays. So the thing is, I really like the Blue Jays.
The team that's least owned of all the 5 teams you're about to list.
Yeah, pretty much. But what I was going to say, just from like a broader strategy standpoint, is I feel like there is a much bigger gap between popular pitchers and not popular pitchers today than there is going to be between popular offenses and not popular offenses. Typically on a slate like that, I'm just going to end up very concentrated on the pitching and spreading it out amongst the bats.
Yeah. Lance McCullers, Luis Castillo, and Aaron Nola are going to make up 75% of the pitching ownership today. So do the math on that one. Adam, anything else before we get out of here and turn it over to the NFL matchup show?
No, 5-game slates. Ownership plays a pretty big role. So we got 2 of them today. Definitely keep that in mind as you're building your lineups. Just ownership's going to get pushed up a little bit more in terms of raw numbers on the quote unquote best spots.
Deep dive?
Yeah. At some point, sometime between now and the deeper dive. Should be around like 3.
Sometime after early lock, I'm guessing.
Yeah, most likely.
All
What
right.
time's early lock? Like 2?
2. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, it'll probably be before. I'll probably just write it now.
Well, there you go. Keep your eyes peeled for the deep dive. Good luck today, everybody. Enjoy this baseball slate. Hit that like button on your way out the door. And once again, shout out to Jock Market for being the presenting sponsor of this show. Win some money tonight. We'll be back again tomorrow doing it all again.